Hi, I'm Shandon, and this will be the first video and will hopefully be a series of philosophy videos. Existential philosophy in particular has been somewhat of a passion of mine as of late, and I would just like to share some of my learnings with my viewers. So, first things first, just what exactly is existentialism? Well, Jean-Paul Sartre is said to be the first philosopher to refer to themselves as an existentialist. However, it's widely considered that the renowned Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard, who was actually born nearly 100 years prior to Sartre, was the first philosopher whose works were deeply rooted in existentialist thought. Kierkegaard sought to answer questions of existence, the meaning of life, and just how one really ought to live their life. To Kierkegaard, every person must ultimately choose between three different lifestyles: the aesthetic, the ethical, and the religious. In his book Either Or, he presented the first two. He believed that making such a lifestyle choice was the full responsibility of every individual, as it would directly influence their lives at a very fundamental level. A person living the aesthetic lifestyle would likely be living to solely maximize their own pleasure. However, their actions don't necessarily have to be strictly self-serving, even though their own pleasure does come first and foremost. For instance, since humans are social creatures, forming friendships and alliances with other individuals throughout our lifetime is commonplace for both an aesthetic and an ethical individual. A key requirement for maintaining social bonds with others is providing them with friendship, emotional support, dependability, and just enjoyable company. However, the key indication of a person's choice between the aesthetic and the ethical really lies in their motivation for upholding these social obligations. An aesthetic individual will likely have a more self-serving reason to maintain a social bond. That person can help me get ahead, they entertain me, I can rely on them. Well, an ethical person will have a more selfless motivation. They care about the person's well-being or want to see them do well in life. The aesthetic lifestyle is a more volatile choice, as a person in this lifestyle is usually just living for the moment, following a pleasure only so long as it remains appealing. It would also be heavily contingent on superficial factors such as power and money, therefore it's rather fleeting. But an ethical individual will actively seek to better themselves through their choices, while ultimately taking full responsibility for the consequences of those choices. Now, the line between the aesthetic and the ethical can often blur. For example, if a scientist working tirelessly to find the cure for cancer does so only because of their love of science, and not out of any concern of the cancer patients they may be saving, can they really be said to be ethical? Sure, they're working towards an ethical goal, but it's for almost entirely aesthetic and self-serving reasons. Kierkegaard's third choice, the religious, was later introduced in his book Fear and Trembling. It's tempting for some to say that the ethical and the religious lifestyles are one and the same, but Kierkegaard asserted this was not the case. The theological suspension of the ethical, as Kierkegaard called it, occurs when an individual is absolved of their ethical responsibility by being called upon by religious obligation. His common example given to illustrate this is the story of Abraham and Isaac, where God asked Abraham to kill his son Isaac as a sacrifice, even though God also commanded, "Thou shalt not kill." In this case, the clear ethical standpoint really is that killing another human is wrong, especially your own son. But the religious standpoint is that God is owed a stronger devotion than that of the individual's devotion to the ethical. Hence the theological, or God, suspending the obligation to act ethically, i.e. thou shalt not kill. Sartre's book, Being in Nothingness, was influenced by the German philosopher Martin Heidegger, who, despite having strong connections with the Nazi Party, offered a great contribution to the existentialist movement. Heidegger posited that a person or spirit, which he referred to as Dasein, literally translated from German means being here, has two modes of existence, authentic and inauthentic. An authentic person is said to realize they are responsible for choosing their own lifestyle, and an inauthentic person is simply conforming to a pre-designed role, likely one expected of them by society. We, or Dasein, always find ourselves thrown into situations which Heidegger called Befindlichkeit. And it's our responsibility to understand that each situation we encounter is permeated with possibilities. Dasein is always confronted with the possible. While Sartre aligned with both Kierkegaard and Heidegger's sentiments on the importance of choice, he took a significantly more atheist approach to the subject. His famous quote, "Existence precedes essence," presented in his paper Existentialism is a Humanism, exemplifies this as it indicates that individuals are a product of their own choices. You are not born with essence, but create your essence through your lifestyle decisions. This means no one can be better than the actions and choices they have made. You are essentially just a sum of those actions. An uncomforting implication of this is no matter the type of person you believe yourself to be, or the greatness you feel yourself capable of, you are still nothing without outwardly showing it to the world. For example, if you feel as though you have a Pulitzer Prize winning novel in your head, just waiting to be written, but never actually put pen to paper or finger to keyboard, then you never actually had it in you in the first place because it never happened. Ultimately, you are still responsible for making the choice to not write it. Inaction is equally as much of a choice as action, and we must be prepared to live with those consequences. Well, that was my video. Thank you for watching.